Hey everybody, this is me, the Undead Viking, and this is AVA Starship. Not ABBA Starship. This isn't a supergroup from the 70s from Sweden. This is AVA Starship. AVA Starship is a game in which each person is going to be trying to control this, like, starship, basically. It's a multinational spacecraft where everybody is trying to make sure that their nation is the one that is kind of steering it, if you will. You are going to be, like, basically boarding it with more of your units. You have some military units already on it at the time. It has a nice, wonderful retro art feel to it. If you remember those, old school black and white movie serials, as far as, like, kind of like the bad, like spaceship scene. This actually looks, pretty good. But I mean, these are the art. Like, here, I'll just kind of show you. The art kind of reminds me a little bit of, like, old school like comic books, or like old, like, toys, from the 50s, that kind of thing. And I really dig that stuff. I dig that kind of art, and I've always, kind of liked the weird, like, belief or the idea of what like the future would look like, to people that were growing up in the 30s and the 40s, whatever. And I it's it's kitschy, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. So I like that aspect. Now, this game could have been like a super serious military game, and it wouldn't have to be a spaceship. You could make it be like some sort of UN headquarters or something like that. But the designers went this route, and I think it looks really, really cool. So it is a pretty straightforward area control game with some dice, which I like. So I knew I was going to enjoy this one. So let me show you how the game is played, and we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. All right, cool. Alright, so here we go. This is AVA Starship, and as I said, this is a game in which there are multiple nations that have all, like, come to this one spaceship where each person is trying to control it for their nation. And it is a no-holds-barred type of situation that you don't team up with other people. I mean, theoretically, yes, you could talk to people and say, hey, don't attack me here, and I want to attack you there, kind of thing. But there is no shared victory, and there are no mechanisms for true, like, teaming up, if you will. But, so that being said, I've set up the ship, and the ship is set up using these tiles, and you get lots of these different tiles that you have. But you set it up as per the design that is given to us. So in this particular design, you can see, we have our little radar dish spot up here, two like spots where we were, like, those are like for like personnel, and then here these are storerooms, and there's the engine. And so you set that up, and like you can see, that is set up right like there. And then to begin with, each person places a unit into each location that is highlighted either yellow or red. Now, yellow or red, it is important because not only are you putting those units there, and the units are represented by these chits, and you can see I have the Russians, the Americans, and the British right now. These are important for another reason as well. There is basically three different ways you can win the game. One is a victory point way, which I'll explain here in just a little bit. But there is a way that you can establish dominance or presence that allows you to win the game. If you are able to place a control marker in those locations. So here, I'll just show you. Like, here are the British control markers. If you're able to place a control marker into those locations, that means that, like, you've taken that over. Later on, somebody else might come in and take over that particular spot from you. So, like, here's the American control markers, let's say. Like, and so, like, if Americans later come in and, oh, took too many, but took over, you place it right over the top. But you don't remove the other control marker. One of the ways that you can win is that if you have a control marker in all the locations that are yellow and red, meaning that if Britain had a control marker here, 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 and here, they would win the game at that point. You can win through domination by having your control marker and the only control marker on either the yellow and the red. So if the Americans had control marker here and they were on the top, they would immediately win the game as well via that way. So those are the two different ways that you win by having control markers on the board. The other way that you can win is that in these decks of cards, and I'll explain this here in just a little bit, there are events. And once you reach a certain number of events that is equal to this number here, which is 4, then you will total up the victory points of the locations in which you have control. And the victory points are located on the top there. You can see, like, you probably can't see here. Let me grab another one. So, like, you can see, like, this one's worth 2 victory points over there. You can see that right there. All right, so there you go. That is how that works. Now, functionally, the only real difference that each of these particular locations have is that they do have some innate defenses. You can see, once I might want to show you, you can see that there's like a shield there. So you do have some innate defenses if you're like the person being attacked in that location. Now, this game does technically kind of have a deck building aspect to it because you're going to be purchasing cards. You can see those little tableau of cards up there. You're going to be purchasing cards to place them into your hand, but you have access to your entire hand of cards the entire time you play. So when the game begins, one person will go first, and they'll take an action. And I'll explain the actions here in just a short moment. They'll take an action, and the next person takes an action, the next person takes an action, and so forth. You do that until everybody passes but one person, and then you restart, and everybody collects their cards that they've played for actions and put them back into their hand, including any cards that they purchased. And then they begin anew with the one person who didn't pass gets to be the first person the next particular round. So that is how like a function of the round goes. Now there is, as you can see here, that there is a little thing which says 3. That means that you can play 3 cards. But if you spend 5, because cards will be worth a certain number of points. Like you can see, this one's worth 1, this one's worth 2, and you spend points. If you spend up to 5, you're able to flip the card over, and each one has the exact same thing. Then you're able to play 5 on your turn. So obviously, if you can improve and flip your card over, that's good. When you pass, you are encouraged to go ahead and flip your card like so to show that you have passed. Then when the next turn starts, you turn it back up. Now, actions are really, really simple. Most of it's going to be actions that are of attacking. You're going to be moving, either moving units that you already have to attack other locations that have people on it, or moving them into other locations so you can try to establish dominance or whatever. Now, to be able to place your control marker, you have to, and once again, I'm just going to show you another card here. You have to have this number of units. You can see there's 4 units there, and you have to be the only person that is in that location. So if you wanted to take over this spot, you would have to have 4 crew members, and you would have to have all 4 of them be there with nobody else available. As long as somebody else has 1 crew member in that location, they are contesting for the spot. All right, so basically, like when it is your turn, you're going to take a card and you're going to play it. And so you can, and you choose, which kind of, are you going to attack, which attack is also used for movement, or if you're going to defend. Now, defend cards, you can use them, as you can see here, that you can use them to heal. All of these units on the back of them, here, let me show you, have a wounded location like that. They take 2 hits to destroy. So if you play like to heal, you get to flip them back over. Now, if you don't want to on your turn use a card to move, you can use cards, as I said, to purchase. Now you can see that there are these decks over here, and these cards cost 1, and these cards cost 2. Now this is a deck of cards that costs 3. I'll just take the top card here and flip it over. So, like here is, commotion. Move 2 units any to different sections of the ship. You cannot move units to sections protected by a force field. So here you have, and this is the, and I really do dig the art here, and I'll talk more about that in my final thoughts. But so you can see that is a card that costs 3 that you'd play. Now, these cards do not become available to be bought until one of these decks has been completely purchased and completely used up. So all of these cards would have to be purchased and done. Now, as you're taking the turns, one very important thing. If, as you're buying from these decks, you, of course, reveal the next card. So you do this, and then, if you bought that card, you'd reveal the next one that was available, like so. Just what you probably expect as far as that goes. Now, in these decks, there are events, and then there are events in this deck as well. So, and if you do turn over, that's a different back. I'll show you that one of those in just a second here. Actually, why don't I just show it to you right now? In these cards, if you see an event pop up, an event is like this, and so you immediately just reveal it and do it. So here you go, power outage. Each player selects 2 random cards from his pile and places them on the tables. Collected cards are shuffled and redistributed. So, you know, just a special event that happens. So those are when the events pop up, or how the events come about. But on like your turn, if after everybody's gone, you have the 2 people pass, so you're going to start next turn. If nobody purchased any of these cards, like let's say nobody wanted this loyalty card, but people purchased from this deck, and this deck, but nobody purchased from this one, you take the top card and you put it on the bottom of this deck. So it's on the bottom of the card that has the 3, and then you reveal the next card. That's so like you don't have a deck, you know, kind of stagnant, like because nobody wants that particular card, you know, for an extended period of time. So, you know, then that's how that works. Now, all right, so I've talked a lot about everything, and you've obviously seen the dice, so why don't I show you how a battle works. Battles are pretty straightforward. Basically what's going to happen is you're almost always going to have a situation where multiple people are in the exact same spot. I don't know, maybe I forgot to put a roast. Oh no, I must have moved the American off of there somehow. But here, so if you have a situation like where you have multiple people in a spot, but then you have an attack happen. So let's say the Ruskies had 2 guys in here, like so. And then he plays an attack, and he gets to, depending upon the number of attack or phasers that he reveals, he's allowed to move. The number of phasers that he has, he's allowed to move or make attacks, like so forth. So if he revealed 2 phasers, he'd move 2 of his dudes into that location like so. Now, he doesn't move them into the spot. You always kind of put them on the edge because there's a really good chance that you won't be successful in your attack, and then you will be forced back to the spot that you're going to go back to. So you don't want to move them into the board. You want to be able to know where they came from. Now, each player who is defending has the option of playing a card. And so, like, if they had a defense card, they can go ahead and they play that face down, like so. If they don't, or I should say if they do, that limits the number of cards they get to play on their turn. They get to play 1 less card on their turn. Remember, you have the 3 card or possible 5. If you play a card, when you limit yourself for that particular round. So if you choose to, you can obviously use it for defense or what have you. But when all shakes out, and also the attacker is allowed to play, they can play another card, you know, face down for support, like this one, you know, for attacks. They can play that face down to add to the dice. But after all is said and done, depending upon the number of support, you know, the support phasers and everything else comes on. You total up the number of dice, you know, by basically the support cards that you have for the attacker. You'd have 3 because you have 1 already in there, and you have the other 2, so he'd get 3 dice like so, and you'd kind of pull those aside. And if you play a support card, you know, he'd have 4 dice. Now each other player, you know, maybe has you know, cards or whatever that they played for support. So maybe the British player, you know, played a card for support, so they have 2 dice, but the American player didn't play any cards. Either they didn't have any available, or they just didn't want to because, you know, they wanted to, you know, hold on to their options on their next turn. So what happens is each person rolls the dice. I'm just going to roll these quickly, and so just show what happens here. And so that was like a pretty horrible roll as far as that is concerned. But let's say, so the British player rolls 2 and rolls 1. All right, so you have to go by the number of successes. Now, all combat is considered to be simultaneous. And so in this situation, we have 2 shield breaks. So if, like, a player had played, like, a shield card, like a shield break, or, like, you know, basically had a shield result, they would, you know, the shield smash would break that shield. But, of course, we don't have any in this situation. And, you know, so these dice really end up being nothing. However, the attacks we would figure out. And I should mention that in this situation, the defenders, both the American and the British player here, they can't choose to fight each other. They have to fight the Ruskies that are coming in. So in this situation, if we're doing all the combat at once, so we're going to do one, so we attack one, so let's say, the hated Americans, we're going to flip that guy over. But here, you have two attacks, and the two attacks could be, if they wanted to, they could just be against this guy that's sitting here. One would be to damage, and one would be to kill him, and it would take him off the board. Like I said, combat is very, very simple. Now, let me just show you exactly what would happen. Let's leave these the same right there. But let me take, let's just trade these two and make all three of those hits, like so. So we made our attacks. We have our three attacks that are successful. And let's go flip this guy over. So the Ruskies could do 2 damage to this one and take out the American, and do 1 damage to the British guy. And so we'll do that. So he's wounded, but he's not gone. Now, because of the fact that they've taken out the one that's sitting there, which is always a good idea, because you always want to take out the one that is always going to be present, and you want to try to lower the number of people that are in your hex, so you have a better shot of taking it back over. So if you have a situation like this, then because we took out one enemy, the Ruskies are allowed to move one person into the spot, but this guy would have to go back. Now, if we had gotten all 4 attacks, we'd all gotten 4 hits, we would have been able to kill off both of them. We would have lost the one, but the Ruskies would be able to move in there and take it over. And now, because they would have that, they wouldn't have control over yet because they don't have 5 in there. And I should also mention that the number that is listed over here, as far as the 5, that is the maximum number that can be in that location. You can always attack it from the outside to try to kill off the units that are in there, so then you can take their place, but you can't move in there. Obviously the maximum is 5. So now, if we had a turn where we have cards like this, where it shows that little man up there in the side that you can see there, that is called a boarding action. And if you play them for a boarding action, what you can do is that basically your ships that are stationed offside, you could then boost that up. If you could boost it up to having all 5 in there, at that point, the Ruskies would have shown control over that particular spot, and we could put our control marker in that location. And we'd be 1/2 of the way, if we could win via dominance, if we could get this one as well, we could then win the game. That is the quickest way I can explain combat, and like I said, it is very straightforward. However, it is all about putting yourself in the best position to win when you're actually, using the right cards at the right time, using your defenses if you're, defending at the right time, different things like that. One other thing really quickly, when you get new people, new units, you have the option of spending 2 recruiting or 2 boarding or whatever to get one of these guys. It's a hero. And heroes take up the exact same amount of space. They are exactly the same as everyone else. The big difference is 2 things. You can't target a hero for damage. Heroes do not take damage until all the other units of their nation have been, killed off in that location that they're in. There are psychic attacks that can't affect them until all their units are taken out. And they get to use these super wooby awesome special blue dice that have different effects, including 2 hits on one side. And so having a hero, and you have a maximum of 2 heroes, but having a hero on board is always a good idea because they are more powerful than the other ones. Now, so the game will progress, as I said, until 1 of 3 things happen. You're either going to have a victory point win because you reveal enough of the event cards, or somebody manages, in this case, if the Ruskies took these guys out and we placed that and that, he would have dominance in that situation because he had controlled both of the yellow and at the same time, and then he would win. Or if the Ruskies had the control over the other 2 red ones, maybe they're just in the stack of the control markers, but they have them there, they become a winner again. And this is one of those games where you can kind of see if somebody's getting getting good, if you will. But you do to have control over those spots and maintaining it, obviously, can be very, very difficult. But it is one of those things too, like with a 3 and a 4 player game, where you can kind of see when maybe somebody is getting a little bit too big, and the game kind of encourages the other players, not so much having an alliance, but just, knocking that person down just a little bit, just to keep them in check while they're still trying to win the game on their own right. Now, I love the idea of this game. I love the idea of fighting over a starship. It's kind of a neat method. I've definitely played war games. I've definitely played games where they are area control and dice and whatever. But I really, really like the location of this game. I really like the kind of retro feel of it. And also, I just love the fact that it incorporates a little bit of deck building into it, but it is just more of your optional cards instead of having a deck build, if you will. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'll try to elucidate more on that in my final thoughts. All right, thank you very much for sitting through that and learning how to play the game. Now, I should mention that when we play with 2 players, or if you even play the game solo, which is an option, there obviously are different rules, and I do strongly suggest that you go to the website for the game, and also the Kickstarter page, and maybe the BGG page. You can go ahead and check out those rules on your own, and you can read up on those, and you can kind of see if you are going to be playing a game predominantly solo, or with one other person, the different changes. The big change in my opinion, for the 2-player game is that you kind of limit the number of cards that are available in each of the decks, and the big red three cost cards are available right away. So that's kind of the big difference, if you will. But go ahead and check those out. You can read up on those. So anyway, I did play the game mostly with 4 people. I played it a few times with 3, and I did play with my daughter one time. She didn't really, she's 9, so this one didn't really hit for her. I think if it had been a different theme, she might have liked it a little bit more, which is weird because she really likes the game Awful Green Things from Outer Space. So I don't know, this one, I thought this one would hit better with her, but it just didn't. I think maybe she just really wanted to watch YouTube videos at that moment or something. But anyway, the thing is that my gaming group, the guys that I play most of my games with, they really, really had fun with it. This is a game that can get a little bloodthirsty. It can get a little cutthroat at times. Somebody that you're kind of expecting them to kind of leave you alone, maybe, or what have you. It has a nice meaty negotiation game beyond the game thing that I really enjoyed, and I alluded to that a little bit. The best thing about it is, in my opinion, is that when you attack a spot that has multiple nations available, and that's almost always going to be the case. You very rarely, unless somebody has established dominance in a spot, you're very rarely attacking a spot that doesn't contain multiple enemies. And so when it comes time to distribute the damage as the attacker, there is a really great moment or two that I've had playing the game where you're sitting there and it's okay, we're going to use these attack points here to take out, the guy that's kind of winning here, but, let's go ahead and just get rid of you as well. And you get this, what? Kind of attitude that, I enjoy those moments. And the thing is that there is no shared win in this game, as I said. You're not playing Cosmic Encounter or something like that, where 2 people can kind of team up and just kind of ride together, heading towards the glory. Ultimately, you have to crawl over the dead bodies of your enemies, and all of your enemies, not just a few of them, to clinch the victory. Now, I mentioned the whole deck building thing. It isn't a deck builder. I shouldn't even say that, because yes, you are purchasing cards, which is a integral part of most deck building games, but you aren't having a random amount of cards available to you. You get to look at your entire hand of cards each turn and get to pick which ones you want to play. So, but there is a wonderful aspect of, one, you can't always make sure that the card that you want is going to be available to you because of the fact that, you only have a limited number sitting there. And 2, you have, there's a resource there where you are trying to, yes, put yourself in a spot where, you really want to put an attack together that's going to, totally take it to somebody. But maybe some of those cards, maybe you want to, if you take too much damage during that combat, do you want to be able to, board with other people? Do you want to keep some of those cards that have those symbols on there? And the fact that the cards have multiple uses, not only do they have, different, symbols on them for the actions that they do, but also the fact that they're actually your resource that allows you to purchase new cards. I really like that. I always like games that put different uses for your resources in play. So you have to kind of balance, what am I trying to accomplish this particular round? What do I need to do? What do I want to change? What do I want to add? That kind of thing. And when they do that in a game, that's when you get that tough decision. I've always talked about tough decisions. I want to be able. I don't want my action to be obvious to me. I don't want it to be like, oh, obviously I'm attacking, or obviously I'm doing this. I don't want it to be obvious. I want it to be like, oh, maybe I don't want to, and so then you have to gamble, and you have to, and it makes you, it increases the tension at the table, and it makes you second guess yourself, and it makes the victory, if you win, or even if you lose, it makes, like, in a loss, you say, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and you kind of learn something from the game, and you move forward. Or if you win, you say, man, my gamble paid off. That was sweet. I'm so glad I did that. And I think it adds a lot to the interest level and the replayability of the game as well. So, there you go. If you like the whole area control, if you like the dice, if you like this theme, I think you're really going to dig this one. I invite you to go ahead and check it out. When I hold the box the right way, that would probably help a little bit. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. As always, I really appreciate each time you guys click through and watch one of these suckers. So, thank you. And until next time, I'm the Undead Viking, and I'm wishing you the happiest possible day you possibly can have. Alright, bye-bye.